to the May long weekend. Does it feel like the beginning of summer out there? Sunny, hey, that's a start, right? Feel too hot. I got brave enough to put my tomato plants out. We're getting there, right? Read the story of somebody who was from Canada and went down to the United States in the fall, and they asked, how was your summer? And the reply was, it's great. We had a picnic that afternoon. Becomes a season of different things. Obviously, I'm looking at Dulge's summer jokes, but there was a story of the family that did their family reunion by the lake, and for a couple minutes there, all of a sudden they turned around. There was a 2-year-old who kind of went missing just for like a minute. You know how that is. You're around a lake and everybody scrambles and goes looking for the kid, and just over there behind the trailer. Nothing too much to worry about, but they put him aside and said, listen, honey, from now on, when you go someplace, you have to tell Mommy. When you want to go someplace, you have to tell Mommy first. And he thought about that for a minute and said, okay, let's go to Disneyland. I don't know. You really looking forward to a good summer? Most of us are. Let's say I came along and said, I'm going to promise you, you are going to have a good summer. That sounds okay. But it's going to be a good summer, but it's going to be constantly cold, rainy, and windy. But you're going to have a good summer. Does that sound like a good summer? Do the circumstances of saying it's going to be cold, windy, and rainy derail the fact that I said it's going to be a good summer? It's amazing quickly how we would focus on the cold, rainy, windy part of it, right? Would it make you feel a little ripped off? The question would be why. As I give a promise and say you're going to have a good summer, weather actually has no part of that promise. We're going to come to a passage that I read a little bit earlier that has to do with Paul. And life is not quite going according to plan at that moment of time. He has no good times. There has been moments where things have gone really well for Paul, and he brings that out in a passage we're going to come to in a moment in Philippians chapter 4. But at this moment, he knows struggle. And despite that, his faith is fine, because it's not based on the circumstances of life. It's not based on what people are doing around him. Instead, he is finding his full satisfaction in life in Jesus. He's always looking to the one who provides him strength in the tough moments. And it is possible to find our hope, our satisfaction, our joy, all those things in a moment of time that things are going very wrong. In a moment in which disappointment racks our lives because God is still good and God is still active despite what's going on. It is possible always to find contentment in Jesus. Even when everything else around us is disappointing. We just need to let him work. Just need to get out of the way. It is a promise of God that he will give me the ability to find my satisfaction in him despite the circumstances of life and the distractions of this world. He is able. Just saying that, right? He is able, more than able. Gone through a few songs today which actually are all about God overwhelming the circumstances of our lives. Doing this sermon series, the promises of God, in which way back months ago I took all these promises of God, I printed them out, shuffled them all up, and randomly said, okay, we're going to preach this one this week, and it was just kind of letting God decide which one we're going to look at when. We're going to come to one in which God is able to overcome the circumstances of life that are difficult, that God promises that you are able because he is able. I don't know quite what it means that God decided we were going to do this. May long weekend. But we are. And I think it's because God is looking down and saying there's going to be people who need that this week. To hear the idea that right now you are able to overcome the circumstances of life because God is with you. Paul says, I know how to be brought low. And I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance, need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Paul's saying the things that are good, all the things that are bad, all exist in God. We'll get through it. He's saying thank you in this part of the letter. So that Philippians is a letter that he's writing, that Paul is writing to a church in a city called Philippi, which is in the northeastern part of what is today modern Greece. And he's writing to these people, and he's saying, thank you because you have financially supported me in a time of need. You've helped me because you have given. And he's pointing out one of the secrets of contentment, even as he is thanking them. And it is shown throughout this book. This book is, you go through the book of Philippians, it is a remarkable book. It is the book of joy. It is a book of rejoicing. It is the happiest, perhaps, of all the books. It is about Paul saying, I have found Jesus. I have found this joy in this moment. And the question we want to ask is, where is Paul as he is writing this book about joy? And the answer is, he's in jail. He's in jail. It's not a good place to be. Jail in those times was not a place you went because you were being punished by the governing authorities. It's kind of what we do today. Get sent to jail, you get fed 3 times a day. Jail actually in their days was a place where they just held you until they figured out what to do. They don't want to pay to look after prisoners. They didn't give you food while you were in there. He needs support from all these churches all over the place because he needs somebody. He needs to pay somebody to bring him food every day. Otherwise, he's going to starve to death. Often you would go to jail for like a night, maybe a couple of days while they figured out what they were doing with you. Paul, however, they could never figure out what to do with this guy. He would go around, he was preaching about love and goodness and things like that. The Roman authorities would look and say, well, this doesn't sound so bad, but every time he did it, people would end up rioting. So what do you do with a guy who's preaching about love and goodness and everybody riots? And so they would scratch their head and say, I don't know what to do with this guy. And so he ended up getting stuck in jail sometimes for years at a time. And so he needed some support, and Paul is in jail. He's in jail unfairly. And those who should be protecting him, the Roman authorities, the government, have failed him miserably. In fact, somebody's turned against him. It's going to get worse, actually. We ask the question, where is Paul when he is writing this? Well, he's in jail. But you could also say, where is Paul? And the answer could be, he is free. In jail, but with a remarkable amount of freedom, because he has gotten to the stage in his Christian life where he has learned that his situation does not determine who he is. See, all these promises of God that we're looking at this year all have to do with who we are in Jesus. That God promises that when I look at you, this is what I see. Now looking down, he's looking at Paul and saying, you're able. You're able to accomplish. Well, how does a guy in jail do anything? How does a guy in jail accomplish anything in life? Look in our world around us, and there are so many situations that push against us, that discourage us, make us feel like we're missing out. And it kind of crashes against us. just this morning, I was been through some news sites just before I got going this morning. There was an article that I read that was talking about how we as humans just naturally tend to compare ourselves to others. But when it comes to anything we're comparing ourselves against, we always compare ourselves against somebody we think does better. It was particularly talking about finances. And it says, you know, we could be richer than 90% of the world, but we're always going to compare ourselves to the 10%, right? It's kind of how we function as people. We always look about ourselves, and then those who are doing better. And you know what? It derails us. God isn't as concerned with our daily circumstances as he is with our eternal life. Being strong for eternity. That's God's priority. And the things that should be pulling us back towards God, others' treatment of me, my own emotional or physical health, the way the world works, it's either going to pull us towards Jesus or we're going to let it pull us away. It should pull us towards God. Our struggles should, because God is able to work in the most difficult of situations. My circumstances are not irrelevant, but they are not the main thing. And we cannot judge whether God is working or not based on how things are going at this moment. It was a lady by the name of Mary Cushman who wrote a book coming out of the Depression era. A couple of years after the Depression anyways, in which she talks about how things went horribly wrong during the crush of 1929 and through the 1930s. She talked about her husband lost his job, and then almost immediately after, his health started to decline. It became impossible for him to do even the least amount of work. She worked hard. She found some things to do, but earned almost nothing. Children were growing up, they ate a lot. She ended up going into a grocery store one day that she owed $50 to. Now, $50 may not be much in this day and age, early 1930s. That is a ton of money. She was pleading for just a little more credit when the grocer got really angry with her. Not because she owed the money, everybody owed the grocer money, but feeling that she had come there to argue with him for a little bit more time to distract him so that her children could go through the store and steal things. Wasn't true at all. She writes a story that she went home with one of her children, done. She went on, turned the gas on in her house, disconnected everything with the thought that her and the one child who was with her would just slowly suffocate, go to sleep, and that will be the end of it. I want to read the words that she wrote later on. It was one of those miraculous things. I don't know if it was a miracle. She didn't know for sure. She had left the radio on and it just started to play, or whether it turned on its own. But she clued in as it started this song with the words, "What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pains we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer." Hearing that, God woke her up almost from a stupor. She got up, turned off the gas, and she wrote about this a few years after the Depression was over. As I look back on that terrible day when I turned on the gas, I thank God over and over again that I woke up in time. What joys I would have missed. How many wonderful years I would have forfeited forever. You know, God is able to take our circumstances and do something miraculous with them. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. I can survive the worst life throws at me, because I can see God is doing something bigger. It's interesting. Paul is writing this in the midst of thanking them for their generosity, their giving. I don't know if Paul feels the same way that I do. Whenever we start talking about giving in church, I get a little, I admit, I feel a little awkward speaking about it. I can say the same thing that Paul says. Thank you for giving. But generosity is something that the Bible teaches a lot, because generosity is one of the ways that I can learn that I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. The church is not robbed when someone doesn't give. God is able. But the person who was supposed to give, they're the ones who are robbed. Because generosity is one of the ways in which we learn contentment. In fact, I'm going to walk through 5 real quick Bible passages and stories and show 5 different ways in which the Bible teaches us what happens when we are struggling with this whole area of discouragement and discontentment and feeling that I'm robbed in life, and how I can get back to what God is really wanting to do through me. 5 different stories in which teach us different ways in which we have to get rid of something in our life, or we have to add something to our life to really get everything God has for us. And Paul is doing it here with this church of the Philippians. And he's teaching them at this moment, okay, do you know what I found? How I found joy. I'm in jail, but I found joy, I found hope, I found security, even though I'm in jail. And one of the ways in which Paul is saying, I've learned that and I want you to learn it, is through generosity. God does remarkable things when we're willing to sacrifice. When we're willing to give up. Whether it be money, whether it be time. Sometimes time is a more valuable thing, isn't it? Our society, we're in a society that really, we may feel more, but we're rich, but we're time poverty, aren't we? Sometimes we need to be willing to give, to discover the goodness that God has for us. And we're not generous. There's a block there. Because God is generous with us, and God is able to do great things because He's generous. And you know, we just need to learn to be like Him. I'll tell you another story. It's about a guy named John the Baptist. Probably all heard of him. It's a guy who came before Jesus. Comes along, Jesus shows up on the scene, and he falls down excited. The Lamb who takes away the sin of the world, he is so excited he sees Jesus coming. But John is like Paul. He ends up in jail. In fact, he's eventually going to lose his head before Jesus dies. He gets arrested. King Herod pulls him away. John is rotting in jail. He is excited, though, because Jesus has come, and he's going to overthrow all the bad authorities, set up a great kingdom that is going to fix all the political and economic problems of this world. And Jesus is wandering through the backwaters, talking about love and things like that. He's thinking, shouldn't Jesus be creating an army or something? He gets a little discouraged. And in his discouragement from prison, John sends some friends to go ask Jesus some questions. Now keep in mind, he's already fallen down. Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He's already done all this. And he sends word to Jesus, are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? He's called all these things out about Jesus, and now he's wondering, did I make a mistake? I feel like disappointed here. Things aren't going right. And Jesus answers them and says this, go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached them, and blessed is the one who is not offended by me. Now, I think John is a little offended. I think that's why he said that. Well, what does he really tell them? Focus on good. So easy to focus on the bad stories, right? And if we get together with people and we start chatting about other people, where do we naturally go? What's wrong? Focus on the good. Remember the good. Tell those stories. Tell those stories. There's a guy by the name of Elijah. He's back in the Old Testament days. He wins a great victory. There is an evil king and queen. People are now following God. They have a showdown on a mountain in which Elijah goes to them and says, you know what? We're each going to put out a sacrifice. We're going to pray to you're going to pray to your gods. I'm going to pray to the one true God. We're going to see who will send out fire to burn up the offering. And so that happens. Those who are worshiping all these false gods, they pray, they dance, they do a whole bunch of things, try to get their God's attention. Nothing works. Finally, Elijah sits down and prays. After he has doused his sacrifice with water, and then after he prays, fire falls down. Great victory is won. Only problem is, the next day, the queen is mad at him. She's embarrassed. And because she's mad at him, he flees. And he goes out into the wilderness. These are his words. It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my father's. And he lay down, he slept under a broom tree, and behold, an angel touched him and said to him, arise and eat. The story continues. He flees deeper into the desert. He flees to a cave. He complains to God. Suddenly there's these weird miracles. There's fire and all sorts of big things that come along. Finally, there's a gentle breeze, and in that, he finds God. And God says to him this, go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu to be king, son of Nimshi. You shall anoint to be king over Israel. It goes through all these names of people I want you to anoint, and you kind of look at it and say, hold on, this guy's in the wilderness wanting to die, and you give him all these, I want you to go see this guy and that guy and that guy. Really get to it. What God says to him is rest, eat, then get to work. Rest, eat, then get to work. Sometimes we do need to rest. Sometimes we need to eat well. Looking after ourselves physically helps our spiritual condition. But we do those things to get to work. Rest, eat, get to work. Psalm 42. We occasionally sing this song. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. That one. You go through that, after he talks about all this deer, then the psalmist in Psalm 42 starts asking, oh my soul, why are you so downcast? What's wrong with you? Why are you feeling down? And it ends with these words, I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Don't sing that verse. Why do I go mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? As with a deadly wound in my bones, my adversaries taunt me, while they say to me all day long, where is your God? Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? And then he says, hope in God. For I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. Goes to this psalmist, and we don't know entirely who he is, but Psalm 42, he's feeling down, he's feeling depressed, and the answer is worship. Sing. Music does great things for our soul. Worship. I want to bring us to one more. Book of Joshua. Again, big victories won. They go to the city of Jericho. Read that story? It's an incredible story. The people of God are aligned for 7 days around this city. God has told them, I want you to conquer it. Get rid of it. This is a city I have given to you. And so they march around for 7 days, and they blow a bunch of trumpets. The walls come falling down. God gives them a miracle. They win easy. So then they go, after they win this great victory, to the next little town along the way, a little place called Ai. They get there. They think, okay, this city doesn't even have walls. It should be an easy victory. So they march in with their armies. They walk up to the city, and they are defeated roundly. And Joshua, the leader of the people, says this, "Alas, O Lord God, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all? To give us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? Would that we had been content to dwell beyond the Jordan," in other words, to stay in the desert. "O Lord, what can I say when Israel's turned their backs before their enemies? The Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it, will surround us, will cut off our name from the earth. And what will you do for your great name?" In other words, he's down. He's beaten. He's feeling like there's nothing that I can do. The Lord said to Joshua, "Get up. Why have you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned. They have transgressed my covenant that I commanded them. They have taken some of the devoted things they've stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings." Joshua is told in this moment of defeat, deal with sin. You've got to deal with the things that are wrong in your life, among the people's lives. Deal with the sin. 5 very different stories, right? 5 very different answers. All these are people who are feeling discontented with their lot in life. They are feeling like they are struggling. They are feeling like, why am I doing this? What's the point of it all? Why am I hanging on to the Christian? And here are 5 very different responses. Paul says to one group, be generous. To another group he says, do you know what? Stop focusing on the bad, focus on the good. Elijah says, okay, you won a victory, now you be defeated. Okay, rest, eat, work. Psalm 42, the response is worship, praise God. And the book of Joshua, deal with your sin. Deal with sin. Which brings us back to Philippians 4. Back in the bulletin on the outline, I'm just calling it Secrets of the Aegean. The Aegean is the sea on the east coast of Greece that Philippi is sitting beside. And he writes to people who are sitting there saying, be generous. Now it's interesting. You go through this sermon series, I keep coming back to the book of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. We spent a lot of time there. The city of Corinth is a city south of Philippi. It is a mess. It is a horrible place. Everything is going wrong in this church. And it's interesting that over and over and over again, we find promises of God that are coming to those defeated people. We don't come to Philippians very often. It's a church where things seems to be going well. But just because it's going well doesn't mean it always will. And they need to hold on to a promise. Well, the last group I talked, the last one on that list of 5 was Joshua, right? Do you know what happens after that? They get rid of sin. They deal with their sin. They win the victory. And then they go off and they win several more victories. And then at the very end of the book, it says this. Joshua gets in front of all the people, all the leaders of the people. And he asks them this question. Will you follow God? Well, absolutely. And Joshua replies back, you are not able to serve the Lord, for he is holy God, he is jealous God, he will not forgive your transgressions or sins. And people fight back and say, what? Of course we're going to follow God. And Joshua points out, you and I are never going to get the Christian life right. We're never going to do it right. That's the beauty of the New Testament. We don't have to. God comes along, and all we need to do is know Jesus. That Jesus is quite unique. I have a runaway child in front here. There you go. I mentioned those 5 biblical examples. Each one of those is very unique. You know why? Your situation in your life is unique. I gave those as 5 examples. They're not 5 steps you have to take and then everything will be right. They are 5 unique examples of different things that we sometimes have to look at to overcome discontentment. We all have unique things to overcome. But I can tell you as I go through this book on Philippians, it talks about humility, self-sacrifice, unity in the church, obedience to God, all things that shape joy. God is the one who brings joy out in our lives. We just need to let him work. And I may not always feel as though the world is going right. I may not feel like things are happening the way that they should. But as long as in each moment of life I am working to know Jesus, that's what matters more. Our goal is not this world, our goal is eternity. And Paul in our verses said, this has become my goal. I'm no longer worried about plenty or need. I am worried about the one who can do all things through me. Because I can do all things through him. And why? Because he strengthens me. I worship a God who is able. And that's what matters the most. So I put aside the things that are distraction, the things that get in the way, and know Jesus. Know the one who's able. We're going to sing a song that might not be the most familiar of hymns to finish off. Sing number 319. I know whom I believe in, because that is the key thing. It's not what I accomplish in life, it's who I know. And so we work towards knowing Jesus. I'm going to invite you to stand and join.